Hello and welcome to No Cardinals, Two Cubs, and a Diet Pepsi. Yes, JJ is out of town. He's in Vegas. Don't know if he'll be back. It probably depends on if he comes back with money or if he's just completely destitute and lost his house. I don't know. I know he has made one questionable bet, but I'll let him explain that to you when he gets back next week. Sitting in for JJ is the much younger, much more handsome, and fan of a better team. Max, how you doing?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Even after the previous Sunday's game.
Well, I'd pushed it out of my mind completely, but now that I'm remembering it, a little bit less fantastic.
We'll get back to that in a minute. I do want to remind you to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, contact us through one card, one cup, one beer at gmail.com. You can subscribe to our page, those of you who are watching on Mac or PC, by clicking on the right-hand corner, the icon there. Or if you're just watching this on your TV, hey man, just go get on your phone, your computer, and go ahead and subscribe to our channel. That way, when we have new content come up, you will know immediately. Also, remember to support us through Patreon. Go to patreon.com and you can search One Cardinal, One Cub, and One Beer to support our efforts. Really, we are recording early. We are recording on Tuesday, so nothing has happened except for these two games in London. So we're going to just talk about the series. The Cubs came in 2 games under 500 at 37 and 39. We were 3 games back of the Reds, 2.5 games in back of the Brewers in third place, and we had been 8-2 in our last 10 games. We had been one of the hottest teams in the National League. The Cardinals had come in at 32 and 45, 13 games under. They are 8.5 games. We're 8.5 games out of first when they came to London. And they had a 5-5 record in their last 10 games. And that was after an abysmal, just completely abysmal previous 2 weeks. In fact, the only reason they were 5-5 is because they won their last 4 games going into London. So they were kind of on a little roll. So that's what we had going into London. We had something on the line because we are just 3.5 games out of first, and we're trying to get to 500 kind of as a jumping off point. The Cardinals are kind of trying to figure out, we have a terrible record, but we're only 8.5 games back. Do we fit in this pennant race? Do we see ourselves fitting into this pennant race? So Saturday's game, the Cubs won 9-1. What were your thoughts of Saturday's game?
It's pretty much how I expected it to go. Wainwright has been, shaky this year. Steele's been pitching very well even after his forearm strain. So that game pretty much went how I would have expected it. Obviously, Hap hitting 2 home runs was that was crazy, but apparently I saw this on the broadcast. He has the most career home runs off of Adam Wainwright for any batter ever. He surpassed Joey Votto with his 2 on Sunday, or Saturday. So that was cool. But otherwise, nothing really too surprising. I think Steele went 6 strong innings, and then the bullpen came in and just kind of handled things. So overall, pretty good.
I thought the matchup was interesting in that it was two pitchers on different sides of their career. Steele, I still can't believe he doesn't throw harder than 93 and he only has 2 pitches and he still gets hitters out. Nobody sees the ball against him, and that's his magic. And the Cardinals really didn't put anything serious against him. I think he gave up his run in his last inning. So by then it was, I think, 7-1, 7-0. So he was firmly in control. But let's talk about Wainwright for a moment. Hap's 2 at bats are a microcosm of what I see wrong with Wainwright. First home run was on a fastball, straightaway center, over the wall. Would it have been out of every stadium? I don't know. It looked like it barely went over the wall. Center field was 392 to dead center. So it may not have been the best hit home run, but it was good enough for the stadium. And in most parks, it would have at least been a double. So, um, double or a home run. So, the second home run was off of the Wainwright hook. Now, last year, what Wainwright had going for him was the hook. You can't look fastball because he's going to drop the hook on you. Since the middle of last year, I don't care what Wainwright throws, hitters seem to be able to adjust fastball, curveball, and hit him hard. What do you think of Wainwright? Did he hang on 1 year too long?
I think it's easy to think that when, all of his buddies retired last year, and it would have been nice for him to go out on a good note. He would have left. I saw a tweet the other day where it was his last appearance would have been, in the ninth inning of, the wild card game where the Phillies were, kind of obliterating them or whatever. But it would have been a nice way to go out, with Pools and Yachty, and it would have been quite special. Whereas this has kind of been a nightmare season, not just for him, but for the Cardinals in general. But there's no one really to pass the torch to as far as uh, prospects. I mean, Liberatore is pretty solid, but he's kind of struggled as of his first outings in the major leagues. So I don't think he made a mistake to hang on. I mean, I would love to get paid $17 million to have a 6 ERA in the major leagues. That sounds like a great job personally, but I don't think he hung on too long. I think it's easy to say that now, but obviously if the Cardinals were doing better, it would have been, a feel good, look, this guy, he's back for one more year and, we're doing a great job. He's been a good presence in the clubhouse. And obviously that just kind of hasn't happened.
Yeah, you could put, I don't know, Bill Murray in a clubhouse and it's a good clubhouse presence. It doesn't mean he adds anything to the team. My point is he was not good the second half of last season. And this has just been a carryover this season. I know it's very difficult for a pitcher, for a player in general, to realize it's over. But there are metrics where you can see it's over. You can see that the fastball is not, it's straight and it's not it doesn't have velocity on it. You can see the curveball hitters are able to adjust. They can look fastball, but there's enough time because the fastball isn't so fast anymore. They can just slow down a little bit and hit the curveball. It reminds me of a player that was before your time. I grew up in the 70s and 80s watching Steve Carlton dominate baseball for over a decade. And his last few years, I think he played a little bit for the Indians. He played a little bit for the Twins. He was basically hanging on, and teams were giving him a chance to see if he had anything left in the tank. He had nothing left in the tank, and I don't like watching starting pitchers who have been great just completely peter out at the end, and that's what I'm watching with Wainwright. Puts the Cardinals in a bad space. What do they do with him? Do you tell a guy who has meant so much to your organization, we no longer have room for you, we're going to DFA you? No, you can't do that. You're going to put him in the bullpen? Possibly. Are you going to use him in a high leverage situation? No, he's going to be a mop up guy. So he's going to take a place in the bullpen that maybe a stronger arm would have more impact. So they're kind of stuck with him. And I see they're kind of stuck with him that you're going to start every fifth day, or we're going to put you in the bullpen. And that's going to look really bad when he's just mopping up games because you can't trust him to get anybody out. And contrast that with Steele. It was a guy who can, the hitters know you've got one of two pitches coming and they still can't hit. You can look fastball and you still can't get good wood on the fastball. Steele isn't necessarily a strikeout pitcher, but he did have 8 strikeouts in the 6 innings, but he gives up a lot of soft contact. and he's kind of what a typical Cub pitcher has been the last few years: soft contact, use the defense, and win games that way. I love Saturday's game. I thought it may have been the tightest game that we have played, where the offense was going and the defense and the pitching was going. It was one of the tighter games we played all year. So I was very optimistic after Saturday's game.
Yeah, I was too. And then Sunday's game was the polar opposite of a well pitched, well defended, offense firing on all cylinders. It was the opposite of that type of game where it felt like everything that could go wrong kind of went wrong, which is just kind of unfortunate.
Well, I want to read this on my phone. This was a text that I got about 9:30 from you that said the Cardinals are dead. Holy moly.
I'd like to retract that statement.
Why did you say that? There was reason you said it.
Oh, there's a great reason because it was the first inning and the Cubs scored 4 runs. I think only one of them was earned because someone booted the ball or something weird happened. But either way, the Cubs pushed 4 across, and it was the first inning, and everyone on the Cardinals looked completely dead, and hence that's why I texted you, "Holy moly, the Cardinals are dead."
I agree. The Cardinals did look dead at that time. And I thought they had a great game plan going in. Look for the high fastball from Liberatore. And they hit the high fastball hard, particularly in the first inning. And I know that only one of the runs was earned, but the balls were hit pretty hard. I mean,
Hard contact.
he wasn't fooling anybody. He was fortunate that only one was earned because, a lot of times, a pitcher will pitch and they'll give 4 runs and only one is earned because, it was just bad luck, shoddy defense. Everything was hit hard. They could have won either way. So I concurred. After one inning, I thought, wow, Stroman's on the mound. We have a great plan against Liberatore, and we are now up 4-0. And with the Stro show going, we would have thought that this game was over. It wasn't over. I got a question for you. Okay, they did go back and make
the Mancini
play an error. Mancini, we are halfway through the season, just like 2 or 3 games from halfway through the season. Mancini has proven he can't play the outfield. He can't play first base. I believe that this morning, a lower level employee like an usher or somebody should have been commissioned by upper management to go into Wrigley Field in a stealth-like manner, a clandestine operation, go into the Cubs locker room, open up Mancini's locker, and anything that's made out of leather, take it out and never put it back in its locker. I concur that the same thing could be done with his bat because I'm not happy with his bat either. This was what has made me angry. And you lose games during the year. Okay, you lose games against your rival during the year. Okay. Cardinals beat us, let's say 4-3. We have a well-pitched game. We have a tight defense and everything looks good. Okay, you lose those games during the year. We're up 4-0. We are 1 game from making it to 500, which is a tremendous accomplishment considering where we were just a couple weeks ago. We are playing our biggest rival, and we have a chance to bury them a little bit further. The only team in the division that really scares me, I'm not saying that another team isn't going to win this. I'm saying the only team when I'm on the field that I look across the diamond and I say, these guys can match up if they play to their potential. The only team in the division I feel that way. We have this 4-0 lead. And I have watched for the past few weeks Cody Bellinger come back to play first base. And for some reason, Ross has made him a platoon player. And he keeps putting Mancini on first against the left-hander. And I've kept telling myself, this is going to come back and bite us in a big situation. Because the ball, the magic of baseball, the baseball gods make sure that that ball is going to find a bad defender at the most opportune time on the biggest stage, ESPN. Everybody's watching this. We are up 4-0. We're going to show the world that we are the serious contender in this division. But no, Ross can't help himself but to put Mancini on first base, who can't catch a damn thing. The ball is hit to Horner. Did Horner really have to move much? No. As a first baseman, you need to realize we've got one of the best defensive second basemen over there. The ball is hit towards him. I just run to first and catch the ball. That would have been the third out. That would have been 4-0, end of the second inning, no runs scored. That would have been the game if you ask me. But no, Mancini thinks, hey, I'm going to run over there and I'm going to catch that ball, not the potential gold glove of the second baseman. They go, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I should run back to the bag because that second baseman doesn't even have to dive for the ball. He runs back to the bag. The ball is thrown. He throws out his bare right hand to try to catch the ball. And the inning falls apart and the Cardinals score 3 runs. Not only that, the best athlete on the team is Stroman. Let's say Mancini is going to go get that ball, but he misses. Stroman is going to be on the base to catch the ball because Stroman plays baseball right. He's breaking towards the base every time the ball is hit to the right side of the diamond. But he couldn't get to the base because there's Mancini and his big, stupid leather glove down here trying to catch the ball up here, blocking Stroman from covering the bases. The Cardinals are not dead because if they were dead, we could have overcame that. But they saw the opportunity and they went for the jugular and they beat us 7-5. Okay. Am I using hyperbole here or am I being accurate?
You're being pretty much accurate. Obviously butterfly effect and all, but yeah, it felt like that was a game-ending play when in reality, I mean, the Cubs were still up 4-3, and Stroman was allowing a lot of base hits. He was allowing a lot of contact. He has a blister right now, so hopefully it's just a blister and it's a 1 or 2 start thing. But at the same time, the Cubs should have scored more than 5 runs against a pitching staff where they've got their best relievers on the IL or sick. It's a depleted roster, so even failing to win after that, I mean, it was just a kind of a disheartening play, I think, and it affected the rest of the baseball game. But at the same time, it's one game of 162, so hopefully they can just kind of put that behind them.
Well, I look at it this way. There have been, and a lot of these were at the beginning of the season when I was barking about Ross at this time that these games count. We got off to a great start, I think 12-7, something like that. We could have easily been 15 or 16 wins at that time. He had done some terrible mismanagement, and he has kept doing little things. I know that Fulmer has pitched well the last few weeks. I still don't trust him. I would not put him in high leverage situations when we got Merriweather, we've got Alzolay, we've got Leiter Jr. I would rather see K come in and pitch than Fulmer.
See, you say that, but we said the same thing about Merriweather, throughout spring training and throughout the first week of the season. Merriweather was in that Fulmer position where he just hadn't proven it yet.
Whereas no. Merriweather had one bad outing. He's had one bad outing all year. Fulmer had a series of outings that were disastrous. And it's not just the outings, it's not just the pitching. he looks like he and Tyone, when they get on the mound, they look like people who are like, golly gee, I don't know if I'm going to win today. They don't project confidence that the other pitchers do. That's one of the things that irks me a bit. Go ahead.
Well, either way,
Tell
I
your
mean,
dad how wrong he
no,
is.
well, he still went on the IL afterwards. It could have been a physical thing because he's appeared to be 100%. His sweeper is sweeping, and things seem to be fantastic for him. I guess as far as the relievers have gone, the bullpen seems to be figured out now. You know, we were at that weird stage where the Cubs were blowing everything, and there were all those one-run losses, and everyone was like, "Oh, this never happens to the bullpen." But it seems to be fixed now for the most part. There are 3 or 4 guys, depending on your count, who you can trust in high leverage situations. Alzolay is pretty much the closer at this point, but you still have, you know, Merriweather and Leiter, and in my opinion, Fulmer has earned his way back into that circle. But still, I mean, that's all you really need. As long as, you know, you have guys who can cover 3 innings of a ball game where you're up, you know, 2 to 3 runs, it's perfect.
Well, that brings me to my second point about Ross. They had a great game plan against Libator. Okay. The Cardinals bullpen is not that good. Why are suddenly we lose our discipline and we're hacking? Yeah, it just kind of have a little bit of play discipline. We can hit these guys, but when you get hack happy, um, they kind of played into our over aggressiveness, and I don't know why the staff didn't have a game. Maybe they did, but the game plan against Libator was so effective. It was after they got him out of the game. It's like, what do we do with these guys? With the bullpen? I don't know. Sunday's game made me more angry than any other game of the season because of the scope of it. We're the only game going on. We're in London. We've got a big audience. The opponent, the opportunity to bury the opponent a little bit further. And I don't like saying it this way, but we lost this the way Cubs have lost games in the past. Mancini should not have been on first base, period. And I'm not a manager. I've never managed a team, but even I know that Cody Bellinger is a much better defensive first baseman. Cody Bellinger is not a platoon player. Mancini, who is your DH, backup first baseman, was at one time a corner outfield. He should have some thump, and his OPS is under 700. He's just not adding anything to the team. I would like to see them eat the contract, DFA him, and because Ross is obviously going to play him as long as he's there. Ross has this affair with him going on that I gotta blame um, because he's Trey Mancini and he had cancer and one time he was really good. I don't know why else he keeps playing him.
That's fair. See, we can think about that, but at the same time, he was responsible for 2 of the runs in the first. He had a 2-run double that really put the Cubs up. So, and he hasn't been a complete black hole. Obviously, he's a terrible defender. He's a terrible base runner. He runs like a 50-year-old man. You know, he's quite slow. He's actually slower than Jan Gomes, fun fact, by sprint speed. But I still think he has value on the team. It's tough because Morel, for how athletic he is, he seems to be incapable of playing any defensive position ever. They haven't even tried him at third base yet this season, which really says a lot. So it's just tough. I think he has a role in the roster, but it may just be kind of like that bench role that, oh, maybe he plays in a game once or twice a week. Or we've got a good matchup for him. But otherwise, I could see reason for DFAing.
Okay, let's take him out of the lineup. He doesn't get a 2-run double. Did he end up scoring a run in that inning? I don't think. I think his double was the last 2 runs. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he scored a run. Okay. So he's responsible for 3 runs. You take those 3 runs off the board, the You have uh, Bellinger at first base, and Bellinger catches that ball. You go into the bottom of the second, up 1-0, with still with the momentum. I this was a disaster that was waiting to happen in my mind, because every time a left-hander has pitched the last couple of weeks, he's had Mancini on first. I've had two thoughts in my mind. Number one, why is this terrible defensive player going out on the field again? And number two, when did Cody Bellinger become a platoon player? Bellinger hits left-handers fine. Uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. So let's so one we're both, I'm sure the Cardinal fans are a lot happier than we are, because uh they won the last game, number one. Number two, our loss was very, very egregious, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Um
Well,
so
at the same time, their loss, they got their teeth kicked in 9-1. So I don't know if there's, I don't know which is a more embarrassing loss when they're the ones who got, kind of obliterated and stomped on.
yeah, I would agree with that, but do you do you expect to win a matchup Justin Steele against Wainwright? I mean, I kind of saw that playing out the way it should have. We're gonna crush this guy because he's an old man who can't pitch anymore. So, oh well, tonight we are home against Philadelphia, who's not playing real well, and we do have Jamison Tyone pitching, so the Phillies have a great shot at winning. And I can't remember who's.
Also, did
Uh,
you know the Phillies are 15-5 in their last 20?
yeah, but haven't they lost like a couple in a row after that hot streak?
I'll check. I know they had I think an 8-game win streak, but they've just been
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
baseball.
So
Standings.
while you look that up, I thought they'd lost a couple coming into this. Maybe they
They're
hadn't.
7-3 in their last 10. So
Okay.
maybe they lost two, but they're on a 1-game win streak.
Okay. Um, the Cardinals are hosting the Astros tonight. I think the Framer Valdez is pitching for the Astros, and last I checked, the Cardinals hadn't announced a starter yet. So getting a little close to game time. Might want to figure out who's going to throw that ball. But um, the Phillies and the Cubs are interesting tonight, because they've been linked, and this brings in the Cardinals. They've both been rumored to be linked to a trade with the Cardinals for Paul Goldschmidt. That tells me that insiders believe that the Cardinals are going to be sellers. And I know Goldschmidt is having a good year and he's coming off of an MVP season. It might make sense to trade him while you can still get some value out of him. If the Cardinals really feel like this is not their year, and it probably isn't, because they don't have pitching and there doesn't seem to be anything on the way that's ready to make an impact. If the best they can call up is Libator, and I, I think the Cardinals have been waiting, 4 years for him to make the strides, and he just hasn't. I think this is just him. Excuse me. Um, Maybe it's time that they sell one of their big pieces at the trade deadline and get some prospects, because there's not a whole lot in the minor leagues that are really impact players coming up, particularly with pitching. Um, and they can ask for a hefty price, and the Phillies will pay that. Will they make a trade within the division with the Cubs? Yeah, Cubs got some great prospects. I'm sure Ben Brown looks very attractive to the Cardinals if they could pry him away for the last few years of Goldschmidt's career. What do you think?
Well, I don't think they're gonna. If they were to trade someone, it would be probably Montgomery. I think he's got 1 year left. If Flaherty was pitching maybe a little bit better, He's probably another obvious kind of trade candidate. I don't I don't think they're going to sell necessarily because typically when like last offseason when they bought it was the really just the Bader and Montgomery swap. That was like their big move. I don't know if they added any other pieces, maybe bullpen help, but they're not having, huge splashy off seasons. I don't think they're going to go all in on a sell off necessarily when basically the same team last year won, 90 games and, made the playoffs. So if I had to guess, it'll be like a smaller sell off. They might trade some guys who are expiring, but I don't think Arenado's not getting moved. Goldschmidt isn't getting moved. None of those guys are, on the chop block at all, in my opinion. Um, I think they're just gonna kind of do a retooling and just kind of load up and get ready for next year. But I don't think they're gonna like sell like the Cubs have sold, in years past where they just like, clean house. It won't be like that.
Well, if they retool, they're gonna have to pick up some prospects. I just took a deep dive into their prospects because being Brody is gone. I'm doing the Cardinal portion of Down on the Farm. There's not a whole lot that's there that hasn't been on the roster, and looking in the lower minors, and I know I'm only looking at statistics at this point, there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of there. I don't hear the buzz about any Cardinal prospect other than Jordan Walker that you hear with the Cubs, with Ben Brown, with PCA, with Mervis, with Morel. Now that, well, before he was called up, Kate Horton, stuff like that. And I'm living in St. Louis, and I'm not hearing the buzz about those prospects. And yes, I do get information on the Cardinals, very interested in that. I'm just wondering, are the Cardinals going to sell anything? They have an abundance of outfielders. And I know it's not the Cardinal way to sell, to do a complete rebuild, but you can only play 3 outfielders at a time. You can only play 4 infielders at a time. And they've got this plethora of young talent that just seems to be a glut there. And I'm not sure if this young talent is as good as the Cardinals have hyped them. And I was talking to JJ last week, that the Cardinals seem to have one of the best PR groups or wings or divisions in their organization for hyping up prospects to be better than what they actually are. I'm thinking of like Grishik. I'm thinking of like Piscotty. I'm thinking about all these players you heard about that are going to be the next big thing on the Cardinals, and they have careers, but nothing tremendous. So I'm just wondering if they're going to trade off some of these parts that have been in the outfield mix and the infield mix. What do you think about that?
It could be in play. It's just tough because you can either get prospects back or you can get major league talent back. It could be a situation where it'll be lateral stuff like the Bader for Montgomery trade. Like getting a starter like Montgomery is obviously probably out of the question, but maybe you throw in a prospect or two and you kind of buy and sell at the same time, where you offload, some of your proven major league starters, and you bundle that with a lower ranked prospect, and maybe you can get, a starter for next year, a young starter, maybe a veteran who's pitching well. It seems so foreign for them to sell, to where me as a Cubs fan, that just seems like
That's
it
what we
makes
do
sense.
here.
If this was any team other than the Cardinals, it'd be like, of course they're selling, but it is, the Cardinals. It's kind of the same thing with the Mets. The Mets are in a very similar position where they're 8 games under 500 and a division that's a lot more competitive. And they have a 12% chance of making the playoffs. And for reference, the Cubs, who are 37 and 39, have a 22% projected chance of making the playoffs. But if you look at the Mets, you don't think they're going to sell. And I think the Cardinals are kind of in the same boat. And it's not that they can't sell, it's just it seems absurd for them to do it.
Would you trade Nolan Gorman now?
No, this is going to be kind of a hot take. I would trade Arenado because that opens up third for Gorman, and then Walker can DH.
I would trade Gorman because you know who I see when I see Gorman?
Patrick Wisdom.
Patrick Wisdom, striking out a ton. Since that hot start the first month of the season, he has been just like Patrick Wisdom, terrible. He's not a great defender. Wisdom's actually a better defender than Gorman. Um, so I would I I would put him on the block now because I don't see his value getting any higher. He's Dave Kingman, he's Rob Deere. That's what I see him as. That's what I see Patrick Wisdom as. We've seen Patrick Wisdom for this is the third season we've seen him. We know what he is now. He can get
Mm-hmm.
hot, he can carry you for a while, but when he is bad, he is terrible. Gorman did have the big hit in the second inning for the Cardinals that drove in a couple of the runs. Um, did he get? Yeah, he got a hit into. Was that the second inning? I know he had a hit into left field. It was not a hard hit ball, but a soft hit ball that Hap had to kind of let the bounce happen, which is why he got a double.
Mm-hmm.
But
Because of the turn.
that wasn't the kind of hit that he's expected to have. It was not a hard contact hit. Gorman's been bad for quite a while, and I think you would find a taker for him right now for a team who wants a DH, someone who occasionally can play an infield position, who doesn't need him to be the thumper, but would be a good piece to have at the bottom of the lineup for a team that wants to score a few more runs. I I would I would put him on the block now. I'd say, what do you got?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's another reason it's difficult for the Cardinals to sell is that they'd be selling low on all of their pieces, which it just doesn't seem ideal. Obviously, no one is like going off on that team right now, and they're all just kind of in a mental funk, it seems. But you don't have like one guy who's, a bright spot on a bad team. Like you look at the A's, they've got like guys like Brent Rooker. You can point to that guy and say, okay, they can sell on him, and it wouldn't be selling low. Same with like Ramon Laureano, stuff like that. So I don't see the Cardinals selling at all, personally.
I I I mean, we've got what 4 more weeks before the trade deadline, 4.5 weeks before the trade deadline. Yeah, that's going to dictate a lot of it. I'm just saying, right now, today, June 27th,
Mm-hmm.
I float Gorman's name to as many teams as I think would be interested to see if I can get something before he has another 2 or 3 bad weeks when he's striking out 50% of the time. People say, I don't want that piece of garbage. That's me. Um, Another Cub news. PCA is now the number 10 prospect in baseball. Do you think we'll see him by the end of the year with the Cubs?
No, and fun fact. So I was while researching for Down on the Farm because Yuri Perez graduated. He's now the number ninth ranked prospect in all of baseball. So,
Well,
and what's nice about Pipeline's rankings is they go off FV. So the only two 65 future value prospects in baseball right now are Ellie De La Cruz and Jackson Holiday. Everyone beneath that from like 3 to like 11, they're all in that 60 FV grade prospect, tier. So if you're part of that tier, you have an argument for being, the third best prospect in all of baseball because they all kind of, when they're bracketed like that, they all produce pretty much the same amount. Obviously some guys are going to bust, some guys are going to go off. But so just being in that tier is, amazing. I don't think we see him in Chicago this year, but I think within the next week he's up in Iowa and he's fighting for a spot, out of spring training next year.
I was watching the Braves and the Reds play the first game of that series. I guess it was Friday night, and LA De La Cruz hit for the cycle. And first cycle hit by the Reds since the 20th century. Well, maybe not that long, but I think it was since 20th century. But he came up to bat. All he needed was a triple. and he hit the ball into the right center field gap. And there was no doubt in my mind, oh, that's a triple. It's a double for everyone else in Major League Baseball, but for him, it's a triple. Yeah, it was an easy triple. This guy can, I think one day he can hit 22 triples in a season. He goes around the bases so fast. And I the Reds just don't have the pitching. They can't hold on to this. In fact, they've slipped past the Brewers now, because the offense is going to have its ebbs and flows, but the pitching's just bad. But man, that guy is such a shot in the arm to that team. He reminds me of Christopher Morel with more talent. He's always up. He's always happy.
Mhm.
He's playing the game fun, and his team just feeds off of that. And by the way, we didn't mention that Christopher Morel had 3 hits on Saturday on his 24th birthday. Yay. Do you think Christopher Morel makes the All-Star team?
I think if he started the year in Chicago, yes. I don't think he makes it as a reserve, unfortunately. But there aren't too many DHs in the National League who I would put above him right now.
If his OPS stays um north, I think it's like 950 right now. If it stays north of
Even
900,
800.
I don't know how you can keep him off, but then again. Um, one more thing I do want to bring up before we go to Down on the Farm. Uh, there has been talk. We obviously need a third baseman.
Hold on.
Was
Side tangent. I don't know if we need a third baseman because Nick Madrigal, since getting recalled from Iowa, since he was optioned, he's back up now. He has a 120 WRC plus, and I didn't even know this. He has 3 outs above average at third base, which is in the top 80th percentile for third base defenders. This is a guy this is his first time playing third base at any professional level, and he is doing it at an above average level, and now he's starting to hit. I think you just ride it, and at the end of the season, if he continues to do that, fantastic. I don't think he will, but at the same time, they can hold off on getting a third baseman for now.
okay. My argument against that is this. What's his OPS?
Well, it's still below average because he had a horrible start to the year, but he's one of those guys. I think he's just, if you get him in the lineup every day, he's going to hit. In that platoony bench role where he's pinch hitting, I don't think he can succeed in that role. There's some players who just aren't cut out for it. That's not their skill set. I think he's a guy, if you just start him every day, he will hit 290 or whatever. And now he can defend, which is fantastic.
I don't have a problem with his defense. We were both a little concerned when we first saw him there that his throws, it seemed like he had to do like a Tasmanian devil wind up to get it there, but that's just the way he throws. Okay, no problem. I have no problem with him defensively, except that he's about 2 foot tall, and any line drive is going to go over his head. Number one, that's one thing. He's very short for a third baseman. The second thing is, I just don't see enough thump in this team unless Bellinger gets hot and starts hitting the ball over the fence, unless Happ starts hitting the ball over the fence, unless Suzuki starts hitting the ball over the fence. I don't see enough pop in this team to sustain a really good offense when your third baseman hits like a 1975 shortstop. I think I like Jimmer Candelario. He's a decent third baseman. He's not going to win any Gold Gloves, but he is a step up from the way Wisdom has played this year. Wisdom had his moments to begin with, and he forgot how to field again. I don't know why he goes in these fielding slumps that are so egregious. But Candelario's having a good year. He's an offensive type player, and he's not going to hit a ton of home runs, but he's going to give you probably 20 home runs, and he's going to give you 30 to 40 doubles. So he's going to give you some pop in the lineup at a position where you need pop from. I don't know why Suzuki doesn't hit the ball in the air anymore. But Suzuki, I just have no faith is going to develop into that 25 home run type of guy that they thought he was going to. The way Happ has retooled his whole approach at the plate, he's not going to hit 25 home runs anymore. He had a year when he hit like 27, something like that. So, but I don't see that anymore because he's opted to become more of a contact hitter, and that it has made him a better hitter. But when it comes to the pop on this team, Wisdom, that ship sailed. I mean, he was hot, then he was terrible, and now he's on the IL. Bellinger just hasn't been hitting the ball over the fence. Mervis just needs more time. He's just not quite ready, completely overmatched. I think a lot of it was in his head, not physical. But you've got a lot of players who are the same kind of hitter who can hit you a few extra base hits, but they're not going to thump a lot of home runs. And I would like to see someone move in who's going to add more to the offense than Madrigal. Is Madrigal a trade piece now?
He could be if he continues to do this for the next, 3-4 weeks. I think that's the best case scenario.
Yeah, and I don't hate Madrigal. I was very down on him at the beginning of the year, but I think he's been a very good player with his skill set. I just wish that skill set wasn't at third base offensively. I'm just old school enough. Your third baseman needs to have some. One year with the Cardinals, Terry Pendleton played Gold Glove defense on third base and hit one home run, I think. Those days are gone. Those were the Cardinals that would steal 300 bases a year. So I would just like to, I don't want Nicky to be mad at me or anything like that, but yeah. Let's say they get rid of Madrigal and they pick up Candelario. Are you okay with Candelario?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. He leads the National League in WAR for third baseman, so I would be completely fine with that.
Wait a minute, over Arenado?
Yeah, over Arenado and Cabrian Hayes. So,
wow, I did not realize that. So
he's having a really good year.
He had a good year last year, and a good player. Came up through the Cubs system. Comes a time in every man's life when he needs some advice on relationships. You need to listen to the podcast DMDR, which stands for Dating, Marriage, Divorce, Remarriage, from my good friend Jeremy Connor, the Dr. Phil of the Boot Hill. You can find DMDR on Spotify or whatever platform you choose to listen to your podcast. Okay, we are going to do the infamous Down on the Farm. I'm going to regress in age to Brody's age. There it goes. Don't I look a lot younger now? And I'm going to look at the Cardinals, and Max is going to look at the Cubs system, and I'll let you go first, Max.
All right, so I'm just going to go kind of organizationally level by level. So I was 13 games over 500. They've been a very good team this year, mostly carried by their offense, but they do have Ben Brown, at the helm pitching. Although his last start, he didn't make it out of the first. He went 0.2 innings and gave up 6 earned runs. So it's kind of chuckling to myself as you were talking about, the Cardinals wanting Brown, but he just couldn't locate anything. Hopefully it's just a one-off thing. I think he's prone to having blow-up starts like that if he can't locate his fastball and it's just getting hit everywhere. MLB Pipeline released their new top 100 ranking, and Brown is a top 100 prospect in baseball now, so very exciting. He's ranked 77th, I believe. And then in other news with Iowa, Brennan Davis underwent core surgery about a week ago. So I don't know if you've covered that on this podcast yet or not, but
no,
he's going to be out for another 6 weeks, and hopefully he'll regain his power stroke after that. He's having a below average season in Iowa this year, but his peripherals, because now they have StatCast down at the AAA level, his batted ball profile actually isn't that bad. He's just not hitting the ball hard, which is kind of strange because when he was the top ranked prospect in the system, he was a guy who could play a little bit of center field, but he's most likely going to be left fielder. He was seen as kind of a replacement to Ian Happ, where he had 20 home run pop, maybe good defensively, just an overall good player. But now he's really slipped. I think as far as the Cubs go, he's ranked like number 7 right now. But it's just really sad because obviously he was so good before he got injured.
Yeah, a few years ago in the Futures game, he had 2 home runs.
Yeah, really exciting player. Hopefully he'll get back there. As far as the Tennessee Smokies go, our AA affiliate, they're 4 games over 500. They just missed out. So basically, how they do playoffs is they have a first half and a second half of the minor league season, and the winner of the first half in your division, you clinch a playoff berth. And so the Smokies, unfortunately, weren't able to clinch their playoff berth. The Pelicans were, so I'll get to that in a second. But in terms of their prospects, what's really exciting, PCA is ranked number 9 right now, top 10 prospect in all of baseball. So it's really exciting. Fun player to watch every time I see him making either a defensive highlight or hitting a grand slam or something. He plays with so much energy, just so much fun to watch. He'll be representing the Cubs at the Futures game over All-Star break, so that's really exciting. Him and BJ Murray Jr., he actually played for Great Britain in the World Baseball Classic. So very exciting to see those 2 prospects kind of go and showcase, what the Cubs have, and hopefully they lead the National League to a victory. As far as PCA goes, I would put money on this. Within the next week, he'll be in Iowa, without a doubt in my mind. He's just ready for it. He is hit. He's been hot. He has started walking more, which was a big concern people had with him. He had like a 4% walk rate, but he's started to walk a lot more. He's still stealing bases. He's super athletic. So if he can walk at a league average rate and be, even if he's, a subpar hitter, his defense will elevate him to the point where he's a valuable major league starter to begin with. But if he can hit, then that's, a perennial all-star, even MVP candidate, depending on how well he hits. So very exciting. South Bend, they're 6 games under 500, unfortunately, because they've got a lot of prospect talent in my mind. They've got Cade Horton, who is also, the Cubs have 3 top 100 prospects. He is number 50 on their list, so right in the middle, but he's been really good. I had some questions when the Cubs drafted him number 1 overall last year, not at number 1, but in the first round last year. He was an underslot guy, and typically underslot guys are not going to perform maybe as well as, going overslot in the first round. They passed on guys like Cam Collier, who I was really sold on. So, or Zach Neto, who is currently playing shortstop for the Angels, despite being drafted last year. But so far, he's, proving most people wrong. He's got a great slider, and his other pitches are pretty good. I saw that he had one of the best strikeout to walk ratios in all of affiliated baseball right now. So that's really awesome. Having a guy who can actually get strikeouts, because most of the Cubs pitchers nowadays, they're contact machines. They don't give up hard contact, but they're also not striking out, 9 guys, per 9 innings, I guess. That's exciting. Kevin Alcantara is heating up. He got dropped from the top 100 list, but which it made sense at the time. I think he had been really slow to start the year, but over his last 30 games, he's been an above average hitter, which, for any center fielder, that's, icing on the cake. But particularly in his last 10 games, he has a 900 OPS. So he's really starting to get hot. And, this is a guy who had been playing in Myrtle Beach. He's only 20 years old. So first call up to actually seeing advanced pitching, and he's adjusted quite well in my mind. So maybe he'll be back in the top 100 at the end of the season. Maybe he won't be. We'll see. Myrtle Beach has been basically the best Cubs affiliate that isn't Iowa. They've just hit 12 games over 500, and they clinched their playoff berth. They won the first half of the Carolina League. So that's all well and good. A couple of their pitchers are getting promoted. Michael Arias, who was, I think, converted from an outfielder last year, he's been starting for them, and he's been pretty good. So he just got promoted to South Bend. As far as the ACL and the DSL teams, they're all under 500 right now, but in that league, you don't really care about win-loss. I mean, these are basically just 17 and 18-year-old guys who are just getting their first taste of, pro baseball, and, they're not going to win a ton of games. They're just trying to get right. But currently, Cubs have a couple of interesting guys on rehab assignments. You have Sampson, Adrian Sampson. He had a shoulder surgery, I believe, at the beginning of the season. He's down there rehabbing. And Braylon Marquez, who the Cubs re-signed, he was at one point their best pitching prospect and one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. He's just been hurt for the past 3 years. He hasn't thrown, I think, a single pitch, actually. But he's down in the ACL rehabbing. And Alexander Canario, who hit 37 home runs last year, but I had that weird freak injury playing for a winter league team. He's also there on a rehab assignment. Currently has a 1.0 OPS, so he's probably feeling pretty good, and he's ready to get back to Iowa. But yeah, I think that's everything I have. Been pretty uneventful besides PCA popping, which that's really exciting, but otherwise things are going steady.
The big hope that we had for the Cubs that was that Cody Hoyer was going to have a successful rehab assignment, AAA, AA, AAA, and then come and help our bullpen. Cody Hoyer is now on the 60-day IL, so he is out for the season. So I just wanted to throw that in, talking about rehab assignments. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, he had an elbow fracture. So really, the video of it is absolutely horrible because you can see as he releases the ball that his elbow just kind of fails. So
it's amazing you don't see more broken arms just from that kind of torque. Yeah, I knew this guy who broke his arm lifting weights. I mean,
yeah,
just...
who could have done that? Surely not me.
I don't know. Well, I was tasked with taking Brody's place, which are big shoes to fill because I don't keep up with a whole lot of the Cardinals minor leagues. So what I've done is I kind of did a deep dive into their minor leagues from AAA down to A, and something is emerging. Memphis, by the way, all the Cardinal affiliates have been playing much better the past month. They all got off to really slow starts, and now they're all flirting or above 500. So that happens sometimes because the movement in the Cardinal organization is kind of stabilized. A lot of the guys that were in AAA have been called up and they've been brought down. So things are just kind of evening out. So Memphis is now actually 39 and 36. And I look at their roster and nothing is jumping out at me. Nothing. And I'm not trying to be critical because I'm a Cub fan. What it's telling me is that their best prospects are with the major league team right now. And there's a gap between their best prospects and that second tier. And there are a few players that I do like in the lower levels. In AA Springfield, as of this recording, they are 34 and 35, so they've been hot lately. They have this first baseman, Chandler Redmond, who has hit 20 home runs so far and has a 915 OPS. He is 6'1", 230 pounds. He's a big guy, third baseman. A lot of thump there. However, when you are looking like in the minor leagues, one thing you have to pay attention to is the age of your prospects. Chandler Redmond is 26 years old. That's archaic for a AA player. That's archaic for a AA player who you expect to make it to the major leagues. So I'm looking at his numbers. He may get a look from the major league team, maybe sometime later this year with injuries. They may bring him up to see what they got. But at 26 years old, they see him more as a roster filler because you do have in the minor leagues people who have to fill the roster. So your serious prospects, you fill the team. But since he has broken out with 20 home runs, he may get a look. And there's been, stranger things happen than 26-year-old people suddenly finding their niche. They also have a second baseman who's only 5'8". He's a little guy, but he's also 26, but he's hitting 319. The Cardinals seem to have a plethora of middle infielders right now. I mean, they got Tommy Edman playing center field because they got so much infield right now. So I don't see him coming up and getting a look-see unless there's a lot of injuries. But those are two intriguing players for a trade package, maybe. Because I don't see them at their age being part of the Cardinals' future, but maybe there's going to be a team that says, you know what, I like those two guys, and we'll see a trade in that direction. The one guy that is impressing me at Double A is a guy named Andre Granillo. Yeah, so I can't pronounce things. He has pitched 36 innings and he's struck out 48. So he is throwing the ball by a lot of people. He's only 23. I expect that he's going to see some time at AAA, maybe by the end of this year, certainly by the beginning of next year. But he seems to have good stuff. In the reports that I've seen of him, is that he is a prospect that they see as someone who's for real. The Peoria team, the high A team, is 36 and 33 now. And they are led by 22-year-old Nathan Church. He is a first baseman hitting 314. He has a 392 on base percentage. So he sees the ball really well and puts the bat on the ball. He is 5'10", 180 pounds, a little smallish. But he seems to have a good bat, and his coaches are very impressed with his progress. And there is a pitcher down there that I think that the Cardinals are high on, and I've heard Brody mention him before. Cooper. It's HJ.
Yeah, Herb.
Yeah, Herb. Yeah, I don't know why people spell their names wrong, but anyway, 22 years old, 39 innings, 49 strikeouts. He's blowing the ball by people, and he seems to be the real deal as far as a prospect. He's young enough that he's a few years away, but he's certainly a part of their long range plans. So that's pretty good. And in Palm Beach, which is the lower A team, there's a few players that are standing out there, 37-31 right now. RJ Yeager is a first baseman. He's got 38 RBIs, 392 on base percentage. So he gets his walks, 863 OPS. He is 24, which is a little old for low A, but he seems to be a late bloomer, 6'2", 200 pounds. And he's a first baseman. So he may be someone who is going to creep on the radar, kind of like Mervis did for the Cubs, starting off in the middle of or start of last year at A and just kind of skyrocketed up there. But he is a little old for a guy in low A. Max Rasick, he is pitched 62 innings. He has a 0.81 whip. So that is looking really good. He's a starter. He projects to be one of their bullpen pieces in the future, or maybe like a fifth starter. He's only 21 years old. He's got a lot of time to grow. And then this other guy that I thought was interesting because he's played at low A, and he's also played at Peoria. Chris Gerard, excuse me. He's thrown 13 innings and I think 16 innings between the two levels, and has given up 5 hits and no runs. He is 23 years old, and they like him, but he is on the 60-day disabled list, so he's kind of out for the year. And I bring him up for a few reasons. Number one, there is someone who is on their radar, who is a little bit older for a low A player, but they like what they see. But the second thing is, there is a lot of luck in making it all the way to the major leagues. We've already talked about Brennan Davis with the Cubs. Here's a guy who's 23, starting to put it together at the A level, and he gets injured. And I can't remember what the injury is because I didn't write it down because I'm just kind of reading it. But this happens quite a bit. Guys who set the world on fire, guys who have a future, guys who play really good through the system, and they get to a level, they get injured, and they can't overcome the injury. So I hope for the best for this young man. He did look good when he was pitching, and Just a sad story.
Mhm.
So that was my kind of look into the Cardinal organization, and I read a lot more than I should have. I've read a lot of personal stories on players who aren't really prospects; they're just roster fillers. But that's one thing that I've noticed about the Cardinals is their best players, their top prospects have all seen the major leagues. Some of them for a while, and we've seen them in the major leagues, and nobody's looking like Ellie De La Cruz. Nobody's looking like an impact player at this time. Could change, but I just see
Jordan
that
Walker.
I don't see it as a prospect anymore. That's a major league player. That's what I'm saying. Their
Mm.
best players are on the roster now, and there just seems to be a gap between these young players that have made it or are on the cusp of making it, and the next level of prospects coming up.
Well, which would you rather have? Prospects or proven, maybe not proven necessarily, but major league talent. Who's already there and kicking it.
I would rather have major league talent on my major league roster and prospects throughout the minor leagues. Good prospects.
Yeah.
I want my cake, then I want to eat it too, because that's just the way I am. Yeah, Jordan Walker, I don't look at his prospect. The guy's a stud. You know, is Cardinals get rid of Arenado? Walker's natural position is a third baseman. I mean, is he going to play third? I don't know. He may
And
be
he's
a
been
terrible third baseman. Who knows? But
he has been, by all metrics, one of the worst defensive outfielders. That he doesn't pass the eye test either, which is the big thing. You
yeah,
watch him play; he's like a baby gazelle out there. So I without a doubt he'd be much better at third base.
who's the worst outfielder? Jordan Walker or Trey Mancini?
That's tough because at least Jordan Walker he's younger and more athletic, so he can maybe make some fun plays, get over the balls. But Trey Mancini is just uh,
Okay. Well, this is the time in the podcast where we open up baseball cards, and we're recording early because Max's schedule. We're at, I think it's mid afternoon on Tuesday, where usually we do Wednesday night, but his work schedules forced us to do this. So I asked him, "Can you get a hold of some baseball cards?" Because I was going to run him up some baseball cards to his house, but I didn't get around to it yet. He said I can't get any, so I'm going to open up a pack. And Max, this is a 1990 Fleer. We're going to play a game, okay? I'm going to name the player, and you tell me if you've ever heard of him.
All right.
Okay.
Sure.
1990 Fleer. Fleer Action Series. Oh, baseball quiz. Kansas City Royals. True or false? The Royals had the best record in the American League West during the 1980s.
I'm going to say false.
It's actually true.
Oh, wow.
What franchise joined the American League along with the Royals in 1969?
That'd be the Rangers.
Seattle Pilots.
Uh,
True or false? Kansas City changed their nickname from the Athletics to the Royals in 1969.
say false.
False, right. The
It's the Philadelphia
Athletics moved to Oakland. So
Mhm.
true or false? The Royals were the first American League expansion team to appear in a World Series.
I'll say true.
That is true. So very good. All right. Fleer prospect card from 1990. Chuck McElroy and Moises Alou.
I've heard of Moises Alou. He peed on his hands. Haven't heard of the other guy.
Chuck McElroy was actually a pretty decent reliever. He pitched a little bit for the Cubs. He closed for the Red Sox and I think the Mariners, so he had a decent career. Okay. Shortstop, Jose Vizcaino.
Yes, I have heard of him.
Former Cub. Very good. Uh, Pitcher Mike Jeffcoat.
No. Oh, that's a great name.
Yeah. Pitcher Dennis Martinez.
Yes, I think so.
Yes. He is a national hero of Nicaragua. Pitched for the Orioles and the Expos and threw the only perfect game. And I think he threw his perfect game for the Expos. But yeah, he's one of the national treasures of Nicaragua. You've never heard of this guy, George Brett?
Clearly.
Pitcher Calvin Schiraldi.
No.
Pitched for the Cubs for a while. Third baseman Tom Brookins.
Nobody's got a great mustache.
Oh yeah, he does. He was a porn star in the off season. Pitcher Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yep.
The name is familiar, at least.
Yeah, he pitched for a lot of teams, and he in the '06 World Series when the Cardinals played the Tigers, he got the only victory for the Tigers. He pitched a complete game that day. Pitcher Greg Minton.
No, never.
Infielder Manny Lee.
Nope, not at all.
Second baseman Mike Gallego.
I have heard of him.
He's probably he was one of the base coaches for the Cardinals for a while. Outfielder Ron Jones.
No, that name is way too generic. Yeah.
Never heard of him either. Pitcher Alex Sanchez.
No, I don't know many Expos or not Expos, Blue Jays players.
Catcher Junior Ortiz.
I have heard of Junior Ortiz.
And catcher Brian Harper.
No.
Played for the Twins. I like opening up the old cards to see if I get any Hall of Famers, which I got George Brett, so makes me happy. So, well, Max, what do you got going on this week?
Not much. Just working.
All right. Well, let me know when you have an evening off because we have a bunch of chicken wings that we can fry up. So,
gotcha.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for No Cardinals, 2 Cubs, and a Diet Pepsi. JJ, I guess he'll be back next week. I don't know what he's lost at the poker table, but he should be back next week, and we will continue with 1 Cardinal, 1 Cub, and 1 beer at that time. So thank you for watching our first installment of our show. Have a good one.